Hey, and welcome back to Builder Funnel Radio. This is another episode of the Grow Series, and I've got Taylor with me again today.
Hi.
And we are going to talk about analytics. So hopefully that didn't scare a bunch of you off immediately, but we love the numbers, at least I do. I guess I shouldn't speak for Taylor, but we're going to dive into how to set up, how to analyze, how to look at data so that you can actually improve your marketing efforts over time. Because if you can't improve, then it's really tough to get better. So let's get started, I guess. Where do we start with analytics?
Well, I am going to start by saying you're going to hear the word HubSpot a lot probably in the recording today. We use HubSpot. We are a HubSpot agency, but any sort of software will do. So
Sure.
If you don't use HubSpot in particular, that's okay. You're still going to get a ton of information out of this. This is just the software that and the platform that we pull numbers from. So you're going to hear that a little bit.
Fair enough.
As we go on.
Yeah. And that's really the technology that we use that puts the tracking mechanisms in place. But we're going to mostly stay high level, but just by our very nature, we're going to mention HubSpot just because it's the tool that we use. So if you're used to Google Analytics or another marketing automation tool, you can kind of replace HubSpot with that in your mind. So I guess, yeah, what do you look at first when you're analyzing data? I know a lot of people probably have Google Analytics installed on their website, and some people I know get really deep into it, and others go, well, I know I have it, and that's about all they know. So where do we start?
Exactly. So I look at three main things at any given point in the month. I'm going to look at the amount of visits to the website. I'm going to look at the amount of leads we've been able to collect, and I'm going to look at the conversion rate. And the conversion rate is basically the amount of leads divided by the total number of visitors any given month or week, or however you break up your data.
Gotcha. Yeah. So we're looking at total people coming to the site, and then how many people are actually converting, and you have that opportunity to start a sales conversation with them. So let's talk about kind of some benchmarks. You know, if somebody's looking at their conversion rate, is there something they should be shooting for?
Yeah, conversion rates are going to vary depending on what industry you work in. In the home building, remodeling industry, the one that we have our hands in the most, and all the time rather, is 1.5 to 2.5%. So anywhere in that range is what we shoot for. Anything above that, great news.
Yeah. And I would say, you know, if you're doing the math and you're trying to run your conversion rate to see where you're at, you know, oftentimes I find that if people haven't worked on a conversion strategy before, they're right around 0.5%, which would mean if you get 200 people to the website, then one person maybe fills out a form. So that 0.5%. But again, like Taylor said, that 1.5 to 2.5% is a great number to shoot for. So I guess as you're looking at the visitors coming to the website, let's talk about traffic a little bit. Are there different types of traffic? Do you find there's different types that are more valuable than others? Or how should somebody kind of, when they see like, oh, this is organic or social, and they're looking at Google Analytics, like how do you break that down?
Right. So we are constantly looking at the type of lead that we're able to capture. So there's different traffic sources, but there's also different types of leads that come in. So you might have heard in a marketing spiel at one point or another, top of funnel leads, middle of funnel leads, or bottom of funnel leads. So the top of funnel leads are kind of your, they're researching, they're checking out your website, they're maybe comparing you to your competition. So they might fill out something like a general guide, or a piece of, they might input their information for a piece of content that's very high level, doesn't quite get into the nitty gritty. Then you've got your middle of the funnel leads. You can tell they're a little further along in their research process. They're looking into more in-depth information. So you might get their information at some point with a little more intense content. Sure. And then you've got your bottom of the funnel leads, which is my favorite kind of lead. And those are the folks that are interested in talking to you. They're the ones filling out the schedule a consultation form. They're the ones who are wanting to talk to you, and they're ready to move forward with their custom home or their remodeling project. And now you had mentioned the different types of traffic, right? So we'll back up for a sec. So you've probably got 4 or 5 traffic points coming in at any given time.
Definitely.
Depending on if you're dabbling in paid advertising or not. So we look at organic traffic, which is the traffic that you're going to want to shoot for, that's the traffic that's going to get you higher in the search engines. That's the traffic that is going to put you in that top spot. We also look at direct traffic, which is folks who are entering your URL right into their browser, or maybe they have it bookmarked. I see that happen from time to time. And you've got your referral traffic. So for our clients and our clients, that's usually from Powell's or so, maybe like a NARI website.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you get featured in a newspaper or something.
Yeah, exactly. And then you've got your social media traffic. Is it coming from Facebook? Is it coming from LinkedIn? You know, all the social networks. And then you've got your paid ads too. So you've got paid social, paid search, things like that. So
yeah, and so as somebody's looking at all these channels, they're going, okay, so I'm looking at my traffic, saying I get 500 visitors a month to my site, and then there's a breakdown of that, and so they get 300 organic and 100 direct, and it kind of breaks down. I guess as somebody's looking at that, you said organic is typically the best, and we do see that typically converting at the highest rate too, which makes a lot of sense because somebody goes to Google with a certain intent, and then if they find you, then usually that's a more relevant search, or I guess a more relevant visit than, say, even coming from social media. They might have accidentally clicked on a link, or they're just not specifically researching that. But how should somebody evaluate that? You kind of started talking about top, middle, and bottom of the funnel leads. So it's one thing to look at traffic, but then it's another to look at leads, right? And where they're coming from.
Yeah, we can break down where these leads are coming from, what sources they're coming from, and then we can tailor our strategy for those different attribution points. So if the majority of our traffic is coming from social media, I'm going to put a ton of effort into our social media posts, our engagement, and where we might allocate more of our advertising budget to social media. If the majority of our traffic is coming from referrals, I'm going to explore that. I'm going to see, all right, how can we sort of take, because we know organic traffic converts the best, right? So that's sort of the creme de la creme of where we want to be. Now, I'm not docking leads that come in from other sources by any means, but organic traffic is really what's going to put you at the top of Google, which is what everyone wants, right? And so we're going to constantly be looking at ways to bump up our organic traffic and supplement our organic traffic with additional traffic sources.
Yeah. So. And I think this is where like strategy really comes into play, because a lot of times maybe you have Google Analytics set up and you're seeing your traffic, but then all you know is, oh, I got 15 leads from my website this month, but you haven't broken it down like Taylor's talking about to the specific channel. Like, oh, I got 10 leads from organic and 1 from Facebook and 1 from House, and you can actually get that granular. That technology exists. And so I think if you don't have that, then it becomes really difficult to figure out what to do next. And so a lot of people say, yeah, I want to improve my strategy, or I'm just not sure if my strategy is working. It's all about measurement first, because if you get these things in place, then you can actually look at that and you go, oh, organic, 200 visits, 10 leads, converted at this rate. Oh, social media, it drove a bunch of traffic, but it didn't convert as many leads. Oh, paid, same thing. And then you can make those decisions based on real information. So that's why we really like the numbers, because it actually allows you to get into strategy and decision making based on real data, and not just, oh, I feel like this is working, and
right.
That's a tough way to make some decisions.
It is, yeah. This is a way to put some tangible information into your marketing spend or your sales spend or what have you.
Once you start closing some customers, how do you tie that back and then start making these real decisions based on like, this channel is producing this much revenue?
Yeah, so that's a great question. There's sort of 2 parts to this, right? So you've got your platform. So like I said, we use HubSpot, we're in there, or Google Analytics or Salesforce if that's what you're using. So to use your marketing software in conjunction with a CRM. Sometimes it's one and the same, sometimes it's different, but if they can talk to each other, then we could really dive into where a customer started and where they ended up. And we can look at all the different pieces of content that they touched along the way, and we can attribute certain pieces of content or certain, campaigns or certain initiatives back to that particular project or revenue.
Yeah, and that's the holy grail, because if you can't tie it back to the customer, then again, you can make some good decisions based on lead flow, but you might have one source that produced 10 leads, and then every other source produces 50, but maybe that source is hyper targeted and you close 6 of those 10 leads, and so you wouldn't know that without taking that extra step.
Yeah, exactly. And the more data we have throughout the year, the more we can tie that back to ROI, which is something that we hear a lot of, not just at Builder Funnel, but when we chat with folks in the industry too. They want to know, hey, I'm spending X amount of dollars on marketing every year. How many deals did I close? What was that revenue? And how much did I spend? What's my ROI? And
Yeah.
a lot of people can't go in and look at that data if they're not using a CRM in conjunction with marketing software and analytical tools.
Yeah, and we had just released our State of Remodeler Marketing Report, and that was, I think it was like north of 50% of people can't measure the ROI on their marketing efforts. And one of my big takeaways from this conversation is that, if you don't have the tools in place, like I would put that high on your priority list for the rest of the year, because once you have the tech in place, which is available to even small businesses today. This stuff used to be only available to the big companies, but now everybody can implement it. And as soon as you implement it, it just gives you so much clarity around, oh, wow, like I'm doing all these things. A bunch of it isn't working, or it's not producing things. And if you shift those activities to the things that are producing, suddenly you've just made huge gains. And so something that you said that I just want to hit on again was, you've got your marketing tools and your marketing technology, but you've got to tie it into your CRM and have those things connected, because what we see in this industry especially is that those get fragmented, and somebody might be using Google Analytics and MailChimp or Constant Contact, and then they're using Buildertrend or CoConstruct or a project management tool. And then they might have another CRM, and they've got like 4 or 5 different tools, and none of them are talking to each other, and that's a real problem.
It makes a huge difference. I've got a client who we can track when a prospect or a user comes to their website, we can find out what page they landed on, how long they spent looking at it, whether or not, did they check out the blog? Did they read 1 blog? Did they read 7? We can, it's
kind of scary.
It is a little scary to see how far we can get into it. And then we can sort of, watch them throughout the process. Did they read our email? Did they look at this landing page? Did they download an offer? At what point did they decide, hey, I want to become a customer, I'm sold? And we can actually track all of that from start to finish. And we actually have a case study up on builderfunnel.com if anyone's interested. It's about influencing revenue. So we'll drop that in the show notes if anyone's interested. But it's really cool to see how someone goes from point A to point B on the website.
Yeah, and what's really fascinating is that you'll start to see these trends of people that'll hit your website, and then it's not until 7 or 9 or 12 months later that they actually close. But like Taylor was saying, you can see their journey, and you can see they come back to the website 4 or 5 times. They look at the portfolio, they look at available homes if you're a builder, and they start just looking at all these different pieces, and you start to realize, oh, this is how I research too. Like we all research the same way, right? Yeah. We jump on websites, we browse around, we come back, we think about it, we go back some more. And so it's so important for you to be able to track that, because you'll start to see these patterns. You'll start to see, oh, this piece of content or this campaign produces, the most revenue. And so can we do that campaign every year? Can we do it bigger and better next time? Can we expand on it? And yeah, it gets pretty exciting. We kind of like to geek out over the numbers, but for good reason, because it all tracks back to revenue. So
exactly. And when the sales cycle is so long, like it is in the remodeling and construction, home buying, building industry, I mean, we're not talking a week-long research process here. We're talking months and maybe even years. And that's a great way to be able to track that too over that long period of time.
Absolutely. All right, so we've been talking a lot about data, and now I want to get to action items, because I know you guys are on the go, and absorbing all this information about numbers is probably a lot to just be listening to. But, for those listening that maybe are thinking, hey, I've got Google Analytics, but I haven't really been looking at it, or I don't know what I've got set up. What are a couple of good next steps for somebody to get started to make sure they've kind of got a good system here for tracking and improving?
Yeah, I mean, take inventory of what you do have working for you. If you have something in place that you might have, set in place 2 years ago, you just never look at it, take a look at it.
Sure.
And then see, and we'll link to a couple different components and tools that you can use. Some of these are free, some of them, cost a little bit more, but you get what you pay for. So we'll link those too, because there's a ton of different tools out there that are either low cost or are free for folks. So
yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, I think the technology is really that first piece, like you've
yeah.
been saying, like you got to have the tech there, otherwise you don't have the data. And so once somebody takes that step and say they put that in place, then what next? How can they start using that, or kind of what's a good cadence? How often should we be looking at it and evaluating and that sort of thing?
Yeah, so you've got these tools in place now. Look at the data. What is the data telling you? Where are your largest source of traffic coming from? Are they coming from organic traffic? If not, then, talk about bumping up your in-page content. If they're coming from social media, great. Put more energy into your social media, get that cranking. So there's so many things that we can extrapolate from the data. We just got to one, have it, and two, know how to read it. So there's so many trends and things that we can pull. I'd say maybe check it once a month, maybe even, more than that, if you're doing a high volume of traffic or a high volume of revenue and you've got the resources to be able to look at it, every month, sometimes even more than that.
So. Yeah. Taylor, thanks for joining me again today to talk about analytics.
I know. The best topic ever.
It's the best topic. We love it. But yeah, thank you guys for joining us again on the Growth Series, and we will see you next time on Builder Funnel Radio.